I'm always looking for ways to improve my music playback experience, and one area that's really lacking for me is listening to music via my laptop and headphones. Now, I still work at home 2 days a week, and I have to admit that the system I have right now sounds pretty lame. Now, I've spent a lot of money on my home stereo system, so I'm a little hesitant to do the same for a desktop system that I'm only going to be using 2 days a week. So I was intrigued when I was sent the SMSL DS-100 headphone amp DAC combo for review. Now, this little unit can be used as a headphone amp, and I'm curious if it will actually improve the sound of my laptop and headphones. But even if you're not interested in using it as a headphone amp, the DS-100 can also be used as an external DAC, which now has me also questioning, will this actually replace my other favorite SMSL budget DAC, the SU-1? Now, first and foremost, the DS-100 is a USB powered headphone amplifier that you can easily connect to your computer via USB. It does not come with a traditional power supply option, nor can you buy one to power the unit like you can with some other headphone amps or DACs. Now, SMSL sends this USB cable with the unit, which allows you to connect it to a wall wart for, say, like if you have a cell phone that's laying around the house. But I wish they also sent a USB C to C cable, as my two laptops, even the budget one that my office lets me use, no longer has a standard USB connection. They only use USB-C. I couldn't find any info on headphone power rating specs, so I sent an email and was told that the DS-100 can power headphones from 16 to 600 ohms. Now, as I mentioned above, I am just now beginning to dabble with pairing headphones and amplifiers. So I can't speak to how the DS-100 would pair with an expensive, hard-to-drive pair of headphones. But I was using the $200 Sennheiser HD 560S headphones, and I found that this amplifier had plenty of power of those. And I mostly wanted to keep the prices as close as possible. So the $200 headphones pairing with the $90 headphone amp like the DS-100 worked fine for me. Now, it's also worth noting that there are two input sources for headphones. There is the single-ended 6.35 millimeter input or a 4.4 millimeter balanced input on the front of the unit. Setup is very easy. All I had to do was connect the DS-100 via USB to my laptop, and I was up and running and playing music right away. If you need to download a driver, you can do so from the SMSL website. Now keep in mind, there's no traditional power supply with this headphone amp, so it actually makes it a lot more portable than others in this price range. Like, I can imagine taking this to a coffee shop, just being able to set my laptop up and easily plug in the DS-100 and start listening to music that way. I don't have to hunt out and find another wall outlet to try to plug in an AC or DC adapter to power this unit. As long as my laptop has power, I can plug this DS-100 via USB and use it right away. According to SMSL, this unit can play MQA files and MQA CD, neither of which I use, but if you're still holding out for the success of MQA, you'll be happy to know that this unit can handle both sets of those files. The chip used in the DS-100 is the Cirrus Logic CS43131, which I thought was interesting because they use the AKM AK4493S in the SU-1 DAC that I love. So be sure to stick around to see if we can hear any major sound differences between the two units when we're using them as external DACs only. The DS-100 also handles PCM and DSD, and because this can be used as a standalone DAC, it also allows for coaxial and optical inputs on the rear of the unit alongside the aforementioned USB input. Before I explain to you the sound signature of this DAC, I wanted to point out a quick operation feature with this volume knob. First, there isn't a low end or a high end with this knob. It just keeps spinning, right? So you'll never reach a spot where you're like, oh, I'm at the highest spot, or oh, I am at the lowest spot. It just always constantly turns. There's also not any kind of notch in the knob that allows you to see where you are in terms of the volume level. they decided to put the volume level input here for the where the inputs are. So let me show you. There's a lot of give in this volume knob. Like you have to turn it a lot. And so I'm turning, and now I'm at the coax. That means I'm at a different volume level. Keep turning, and the sound is increasing, but now I'm at this level, and I'm increasing the sound until I am now at this highest level, and then it goes back down in the same way. Personally, I wish there was a notch and a starting and ending point on this volume knob, that it just didn't forever turn. And or maybe there was something else here on a display that let me know where I was in terms of the volume setting. Because as we know, with headphones, you don't want to power something on and immediately blow your ears out. So I think that that would have been a little bit of a better representation for volume control on this unit. I've been listening to the DS-100 for the past couple of weeks here in my home office, aka the kitchen table. And I have to say, I've been very impressed with how quiet this unit is. I have not encountered any hiss or any distortion at all while listening to the DS-100. Now, unfortunately, I don't have another headphone amp DAC combo like this that I could just do an easy side-by-side comparison for my listening here at my computer with my headphones. But I do have the SU-1 DAC. So we'll do a side-by-side comparison of how this unit sounds versus the SU-1 as an external DAC in just a few minutes. But for now, I'm just gonna have to stick with a subjective listening opinion based on using my Sennheiser headphones here. I just can't really do any measurements here. So this is going to be, for the most part, this section will be a subjective opinion of how it sounds. And as we all know, most people are going to pair this amplifier with different headphones than I have. So take all of this with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary depending on which headphones you connect to this amplifier. Last week, we received the unfortunate news that Steve Albini passed away. And that sent me down a rabbit hole of listening to a lot of the albums that he's produced, including the classic Surfa Rosa by the Pixies. Now, Steve Albini always had a distinct drum sound when he recorded, and it's definitely present when listening to Surfa Rosa. I was listening to the first track, Bone Machine, and the DS-100 did a great job of making those drums sound as big as they could, with lots of air around all the instrumentation. I also thought the channel separation was accurate, because that song's got dueling vocals between Frank Black and Ken Deal, and you could hear them appropriately in each side of the headphones while listening to the track. As I continue to listen to music with the DS-100, I notice a lot of the same attributes, which is that it tends to pick up an instrument here or there and highlight it, but in a subtle fashion. Nothing is really too forward, nor does it stand out. So I think a lot of people may have trouble hearing a night and day sound difference when using this versus just plugging directly into their laptop, especially since a lot of people aren't doing critical listening when using a laptop and a headphone amplifier, at least not for me. I'm usually working. But the one thing that I really liked about the DS-100 is that because it's a dedicated headphone amplifier, it gave me extra juice so that I could get more volume with my Sennheiser HD 560s, rather than just plugging directly into the laptop. And that volume is always a little bit more appreciated when listening to quieter music, think classical or acoustic-oriented music. So that was a big benefit for me when using the DS-100. Now, a lot of friends have been asking me to recommend a budget DAC because they honestly want to buy one and try to determine if they can actually hear different things when using an external DAC. And the one I always recommend is the SMSL SU-1. It's got a lot of punch to it, and I think it's the one that people hear the most sound difference the quickest with when they're buying their first external DAC. But I wanted to make a comparison between that DAC because I'm wondering, should I start recommending the DS-100 instead and use it as an external DAC instead of a headphone amplifier? So I put them in a side-by-side listening to comparison while listening to Mavis Staples. And she has a song called Pop's Recipe. And what I found was that when listening with the DS-100, the sound was much more laid back and it sounded good. But when I plugged that SU-1 back into the mix, again, the instrumentation found itself to be more punchy in ways that I like. For instance, there is an organ that's playing throughout that song. I could hear it much more musically with the SU-1, including some rhythm guitar points, and her vocals overall stood out in a more pleasing manner for me. That's not to say, again, that the DS-100 sounds poor. I think it's a good sounding DAC. What I have found is that my ears tend to prefer the more punchy, highlighted sounds when using an external DAC, and I was able to hear that better with the SU-1 over the DS-100. It's important to keep in mind that the DS-100 is $90, which is just $10 more than the SU-1, and the SU-1 is simply an external DAC only, while you can use the DS-100 in two separate ways. Again, as a headphone amplifier, which we've established, and also as an external DAC. So for some people, the $10 extra cost to get two uses out of one piece of gear will be more important than the highlighted sound signatures that the SU-1 was able to provide at $80 instead of $90. So who should buy the DS-100? It's $90. It's dead quiet. There's no hiss, there's no distortion. If you're someone that's always on the go and you're looking for extra juice with a USB powered device for your headphones, I think this is a great investment at $90. If you're someone that's looking to drastically change the sound signature you're getting between plugging your headphones directly into your laptop versus into this headphone amplifier, I'm not sure that this is the home run option for you. I think you could probably use a different product to get a different sound signature. Again, this one's just a little bit more laid back and it's not a night and day difference. If you're someone that's looking for an external DAC only, I would still stick with the SU-1 unless you're so interested in saving money that you can get a headphone amp and an external DAC at just $10 more than the SU-1, then I think the DS-100 would be a great option for you as well. Now, throughout this review, I wanted to pair both of these DACs with another SMSL product that I was recently sent for review, which is the tiny DA1 amplifier. I mean, it's so small that honestly, you can fit it in your shirt pocket. You can absolutely probably just lose it altogether. But it was a fun little sounding amplifier, 65 watts into 4 ohms. So it's packing a lot of power. It might actually make for a great little setup if you are short on space. If you'd be interested in learning more about that product, you can do so by watching this video here.